Ren and I just got to try lab-grown chicken.
Yes, two of the first people in the world, and we learned that they actually prefer the term cultivated chicken.
Roll the tapes.
All right, we are at the Upside Food event. We're about to taste cultivated chicken for the first time.
Thrilled.
Mabel, what do you think it's going to taste like?
I hope it tastes like normal bland chicken.
Yeah.
What about you?
I'm expecting chicken, and if it's anything but chicken, I'll be very sad.
Yes, we'll keep you posted. Taco time. We were told that this was a shawarma taco, and the chicken was like marinated in yogurt overnight and spices.
Good.
Oh, good. Yeah.
It really just tastes like chicken.
Yeah, it's like there's not much to say. Yeah, like I would eat this. I would have it.
So it tasted, trigger warning, moist. Like it didn't taste artificial or like bendy vegan chicken. I would have totally believed that it was real.
But the whole idea of lab-grown chicken is gross to people. Like, my mom literally won't let me tell her about it.
Yeah, even people in the food industry admit that there's like this ick factor, but that hasn't stopped more than 100 companies around the world from trying to create cultivated proteins, from lab-grown lamb to oysters to even foie gras, which I think is taking it a little too far.
And one of the originals and biggest companies is Upside Foods, which is headquartered in San Francisco. It's the one that we tried. It was actually founded by a cardiologist who grew heart tissue outside the body.
And he helped start this whole industry. And now Upside is one of the 2 companies in the US that actually have approvals from the FDA and USDA to sell cultivated meat.
Right now, the only place that you can buy it at the store is in Singapore, even though it is available in pet food in the UK, but Upside hopes to have their meat in US grocery stores by next year.
And we've seen it on the menu at a couple high-end restaurants in the US, like a Michelin star restaurant in San Francisco and a Jose Andres restaurant in DC.
And at private tastings like the one that we went to.
And at this point, you're all definitely wondering, literally, how do you create fake chicken cells? Like, what is going on here? So we spoke with Jessica Halper from the research and development team at Upside Foods. So can you walk us through how the cultivated chicken is actually made?
So you find an animal or an egg, which was a chicken in this case for us, and you take just a small sample of cells that the animal hardly notices. Our team then will go ahead and select the best cells from that sample. We then take those cells and we put them in this giant stainless steel tank, which basically looks like what you would make beer or yogurt in. And we make the cells nice and cozy, and we feed them a bath of nutrients, it's sugars and amino acids and salts and vitamins. It's really like creating the chicken outside the chicken's body. So creating kind of a chicken in stainless steel. And the cells grow and they multiply as cells do. And after only about 2 weeks, the meat is ready and it's removed from the tank, it's washed, and it's processed into whatever desired form a customer wants. So that could be sort of shredded chicken or a chicken strip, which is what I think you guys tasted.
So we know there's different like percentages of cells in different products.
Yeah.
Can you explain how that works?
Yeah, I mean, so we have 2 products in our portfolio. So we have one product that basically looks like a very thin chicken breast, and that's upwards of 99% chicken cells. So that's really our very limited North Star product. The product that you guys tried is a mix, right? And that's going to be very common in the industry. And what it does is it allows more consumers to kind of taste that magic, but at a much more affordable price point, because our goal is to get this into as many mouths as possible. It does have plant-based ingredients, which kind of help bind it, give it body, because I think what's interesting about this, the science is like there's no bone, right? There's something that it's attaching to or growing to. So as of right now, it does have some soy. It does have some gluten. We're trying to get the gluten out because, we don't want the top 2 allergens in our product.
So can you tell us about some of the benefits of cultivated chicken?
Well, I think the animal welfare benefits are obvious. You get to enjoy chicken without killing a chicken, with significant reductions in land, in water usage, in greenhouse gas emissions. It's also incredibly safe, right? Because the cells come from a sterile environment. There's no animal involved. And when there's no animal involved, there's no feathers, there's no beaks, there's no intestines, like not to get super gross here, but like you don't pull in salmonella or E. coli or the things that you find in sort of traditional animal agriculture. Right?
So as Jess said, there's lots of upsides, pun intended. So let's unpack them. Her last point, that it's safer, is important right now with the bird flu that's spreading from animal contact.
Another obvious reason that this will be a draw for so many people is the prevention of animal cruelty. So currently 80 billion animals are slaughtered every year for meat, and we pump so many hormones into them. This was disturbing that an 8-week-old chicken today is about 4 times heavier than an 8-week-old chicken was 60 years ago. Their breasts are so large that they have a hard time even standing.
The environmental impact of the meat industry is another pro in the cultivated column. So listen to these insane stats. Meat production accounts for 14% of all greenhouse gas emissions, uses 1/3 of all fresh water on Earth, and 1/3 of ice-free land. Basically, every part of the meat production life cycle leaves a mark, like from cattle releasing methane to converting forest into animal pasture to using electricity to ventilate and cool the stalls.
Cultivated meat is also really appetizing, get it, to food insecure countries like Israel, the UAE, and Singapore. So these countries don't have thriving agricultural industries and actually import most of their food. So Singapore actually imports over 90% of their food. And there have been so many interruptions recently in the global food supply chain, like COVID and all of these wars and global warming. So these countries are worried about like running out of food. So they're some of the first to really push for cultivated meat in markets.
But not everyone is for it. So Florida became the first state to ban the sale of cultivated meat last year. This is what DeSantis said at the time.
So it is designed to represent a threat to agriculture as we know it. Take your fake lab-grown meat elsewhere. We're not doing that in the state of Florida.
But Upside is fighting back because DeSantis's goal was to protect farmers from cultivated competition, but Florida doesn't have any cultivated meat companies, so they're essentially banning out-of-state competition, which violates the Commerce Clause of the Constitution, which grants only Congress the power to regulate interstate commerce. So Upside has filed a suit against the state.
Yeah, I don't know about banning it, but I do get why so many people are worried about their jobs. So the meat industry is actually a $1 trillion global industry, and a lot of these cultivated meat critics cite almond milk and how it was a huge disruption to the milk and dairy industry, and this is something that they're really scared of.
Well, following Florida's lead, Alabama became the second state to ban the sale of lab-grown meat, and bans are being considered in Nebraska, Arizona, and Tennessee. And Iowa passed legislation prohibiting lab-grown food from being labeled as meat.
And because the cultivated meat industry is so new, people are skeptical about what's actually being used to grow the chicken in these bioreactors. So in our research, we found that a lot of companies use this like secret chemical growth serum, which is taken from the blood of fetuses in pregnant cows. And Upside is actually proud for being one of the first companies to completely phase that out. They don't use that anymore. So there is that. And then there's also skepticism about whether lab-grown meat is actually better for the environment because those bioreactors actually use up so much electricity.
Since none of these cultivated meat companies are producing large quantities, it's hard to gauge exactly how big the footprint will be. But a study found that lab-grown beef could have up to 25 times the carbon emissions of real beef, meaning it's only going to be environmentally beneficial if they use solar or wind or some kind of renewable energy.
Yeah, there are a lot of complicated moving parts to this industry, and I feel like what makes it even trickier is that we're talking about creating something on a cellular level, so people have a lot of problems with it in terms of like ethics and morals as well.
Yeah, some people are really against it, some people are really for it. Upside says they have the best luck with ethical vegans or wannabe vegans or environmentalists, so there is definitely some market for it.
As for pricing, lab-grown meat is going to cost $17 per pound to produce, as opposed to $3 per pound for regular chicken, so we can assume that this will become more expensive, although Upside does say that it's a priority for them to make their products affordable.
We asked Jess about the future of cultivated meat.
I think the promise of this industry is like you could have a steak that has the nutritional profile of salmon. We've heard loud and clear from consumers that like they're okay with some sci-fi, but not like too much sci-fi yet.
And we heard at the event that the next frontier is beef.
Yes.
So is that in production right now?
Yeah. So beef is really exciting for us. Like people have a lot of feelings around beef and a lot of feelings around how they like their burger to taste. So we started the beef program like a year ago, and it's gone pretty fast.
There's been this like huge push recently, like a health push towards like whole foods and like natural foods. Is this chicken considered like processed, ultra processed? And how do you like market that then?
Yeah, that's a great question. I get that question all the time. You know, I'll be really transparent. Like this is high tech food. we can't hide the fact that it's made in a lab because it's made in a lab. If you're someone that really enjoys, eating only from the land or the ground, this may not be for you right now. We position ourselves as an and, like we're not an or. Like we just want to be another choice for people.
Thanks for tuning in on this historic week.
Watch or listen next week for a really cool segment on the AI modeling industry.
Bye.